Python, like any computer language, does calculations, evaluates expressions, assigns values, repeats actions in a loop, makes decisions with tests, and performs input and output of data. The power of Python is its ability to execute these tasks with vast amounts of data at lightning speed with perfect accuracy, and to do this 24 hours a day, every day, without ever getting tired. In this video, we look at control and structure in a Python program, which is how its execution is organized. A Python script can also be called a program or a code. In this video, I will use the term Python program. A Python program is stored in a .py file. A program is a list of statements that by default are executed in sequence, but some statements, called control statements, can redirect execution to different places in the list. So what is called the flow of execution is controlled by control statements, which divert a default sequential flow to different places. This is called flow of control, or control flow, or simply control. Flow is not directed to anywhere in the program, but moves within a structure. A program is structured as blocks of code, and control flow directs execution to different blocks. A block of code is a set of statements executed as a unit. A program in a .py file is a block, and there can be blocks within blocks, as we shall see. Before we look at Python control, let's take a brief look at input and output, known as I/O. We have already encountered the print statement, which prints arguments to the console. For input from the console, the built-in function input takes a string argument, which is printed to the screen as a prompt, and reads and returns input from the screen as a string. There is also file I/O, which uses functions such as open, read, write, and close. Let's return to control. There are two types, conditional and loop. Conditional control tests a condition and uses the result to make a decision to redirect flow. This is done using the if keyword in a compound statement that contains two or more statements, structured as a header statement followed by an indented block called a suite. The header statement is if condition followed by a colon. The condition is an expression that evaluates to true or false. If true, flow is directed to execute the suite, and if false, to skip over the suite to the next statement after the suite. The suite cannot be empty. It must have at least one statement. If you are developing a program and you know you will need the if suite but don't know yet what it should do, you can use the pass statement. This statement does nothing. It is just a placeholder. The interpreter will read it, do nothing, and go to the next statement. The suite being indented is not optional. It is a rule of Python, and Spider automatically indents a suite that follows an if header statement. Indenting of code is good style in any computer language and is enforced in Python. An if statement can optionally have an elif clause that follows the first suite. Elif is short for else if and defines another header and a suite that is executed if its condition is true. There can be more than one elif block. An if compound statement can also, as an option, terminate with one else clause, which has a header with the keyword else followed by a colon with no condition, followed by a suite that is executed if none of the if or elif conditions above is true. An else clause may be used as a default action if none of the other conditions is true. A compound if statement with its elif and else clauses, if they are present, is a block, and so is a header statement and its suite, and so is a suite. The second type of control is loop control, which enables a block of code to be executed many times. Python has two types of loop control, sequential and conditional. A sequential loop is a for loop, which has a header for statement followed by an indented suite. The header has the format for target in sequence followed by a colon. For declares a for loop, and in extracts each item in the sequence and assigns the item to the target variable. The suite is iterated or repeated for each item in the sequence, and the target can be used in the suite. Here is an example. This uses the built-in range function to generate the sequence of integers 0 to 4. Note that in IPython, multiple lines may be written as a block, which is terminated by a blank line. A for loop can also iterate through a sequence of items in a sequence container object, which means a string, a list, or a tuple. For example, iterate over a string, a list, and a tuple. You may wish to exit a loop suite partway through the suite, but still continue with the next iteration, which is done with the continue statement. When the Python interpreter reads a continue statement, it skips the remaining statements in the suite and returns to the top of the suite for the next iteration. If you wish to exit the for loop completely and do no more iterations, use the break statement, which directs flow out of the loop and to the next statement following the loop. The other type of loop is a conditional loop, written with a compound while statement. Like a for loop, it has a header followed by an indented suite, and the header has the format while condition followed by a colon. While is a keyword, and condition is an expression that evaluates to true or false. If it is true, the suite is executed, and flow returns to the header for the next iteration. And if it is false, loop execution terminates, and flow is directed to the first statement after the loop. Here is an example. Note that whereas a for loop is executed for a set number of iterations, a while loop continues iterating while the condition is true. If the coder is not careful, this can result in an infinite loop, in which the condition is always true and the loop never stops repeating. As in a for loop, a while suite cannot be empty, but can use a pass statement as a placeholder and can contain continue or break statements which have the same effect as in a for suite. A special feature of Python is the list comprehension, which is a way of generating a list on one line using a for statement in square brackets. For example, the target can be used to calculate another quantity, for example, and can be filtered with an if clause. The if, for, and while control statements provide most of the power of Python flow control. An additional vital control, which is also part of the structure of Python, is the function. A function is a block of code written as a function definition header statement followed by an indented suite. The header has the format def function name followed by round brackets, which may contain an optional argument list, and then a colon. The suite is where the function executes a task and can return a value with a return statement. A function always returns a value even without a return statement. If there is no return statement, it returns the value none. The function is called from the main program or from another function with its name and with arguments if there are any. It may be called just with its name or in an assignment statement in which the returned value is assigned to a variable.